Hello and welcome back to Democracy, everybody. Welcome back to Helldivers 2, where today we're going to be taking a look at all the orbital strikes, and we're going to be ranking them from worst to best. So let's hop right into this with our very first pick down in D tier. And we only have one D tier orbital, which if you've been watching some of the other videos I've been doing, you can probably guess what this is. This is the orbital smoke strike. The smokes generally aren't way great in this game. I think the smoke grenade might be the best option for it because it kind of covers the biggest area, and hopefully the smokes do get buffed in the future to be a little bit more useful than what they currently are, because right now they're really only good for like soft cover. You throw it to an area and you can kind of cover that area, at least from like ranged enemies. It doesn't really do much towards melee enemies because they'll likely just flood in anyway. The smoke strike unlocks at level 8. This will cost you 4,000 requisition slips. It's a 4-button input. It does have a very short cooldown on it, which is a good thing, and it's very unlikely that you can actually hurt yourself with this. I think the canisters from this do actually do damage if they land directly on something, similar to like the Eagle smoke strike, but it's extremely difficult to actually land those, so it's very unlikely that that'll happen. There's very little chance that you're going to get any friendly fire with this. Smokes can obscure the area, and that is pretty nice, but that's pretty much all they do. They don't really do all that much, and I think that there's kind of better options than this in the orbitals. Moving into C tier, we have 2 orbital strikes. The orbital strikes are generally pretty good in this game, but these two can be a little bit hit or miss. First one up we have is the orbital EMS strike. This one is unlocked at level 5, costs you 6,000 requisition slips, the 4-button input, has a very short cooldown, and this one is a non-lethal strike that basically just immobilizes all enemies within an area once they're hit. And that can be kind of good depending on how many enemies you hit with this, but sometimes it just feels like it doesn't really do that much, and it doesn't actually cover all that much of an area. I think if you wanted to do this, but a whole lot better, just go with the mortar that shoots the EMS rounds. It can fire out multiple of these, it covers about the same area, it can actually stun lock enemies in place, and it's more of a set it and forget it type of thing. This one is still potentially good, at least under ideal circumstances. It can be nice, and you can still run through the EMS strike, but it does slow you down, so that can be kind of annoying overall. And then our last C tier that I was debating on whether to put into B tier, but I'll put it down here. This is the Orbital Airburst strike. This one is unlocked at level 5. This one costs you 4,000 requisition slips, only a 3-button input, and it's the same 3 buttons, so it's incredibly easy to call this out really quickly. It also has a really fast cooldown on it too, like most of the orbitals, and this one will fire down an airburst on top of the area where you put it. It'll fire down multiple of these. This does a lot of damage towards smaller enemies. It's particularly good against bugs. It can be okay against squids, and I don't find it super useful against bots. These ones do have medium armor pen on them, so they can hurt quite a few things, but they're not super consistent for knocking out any sort of big enemies or even really hurting big enemies. They can kind of sometimes kill medium enemies, but sometimes the medium enemies can also potentially shrug this off. It really depends on where they get hit from it. So I just find it to be a little bit less consistent than some of the other barrages. There's also a chance you could hurt yourself with this one, just like with a lot of these orbitals, although this one seems to get me killed more often than I would think with the orbitals, so not super useful in my opinion. It's still not bad by any means. If you just want to take it for crowd control, it can still be pretty good, and like I said, on bug missions it's pretty nice for like throwing at choke points. But on other missions like bot missions, I find it to be a little bit underwhelming compared to some of the other options we've got. Moving up to the B tier orbitals, we have 2 more of them. Most of the orbitals are pretty good, so they're going to actually be scoring higher than this. First up, we have the Orbital Gatling Barrage. This one unlocks at level 1, so you can get it right away as soon as you start the game. Costs you 1,500 requisition slips. It's a 5-button input, and this one just fires down a bunch of bullets down in an area. The Gatling Barrage isn't anything crazy. Again, it's mostly for crowd control. The Orbital Gatling Barrage fires out about 300 projectiles in a particular area. This does have up to anti-tank properties on it, but it's not always consistent for hitting big enemies. It's better for crowd control. It's better for medium and small enemies because it can just hold down an area and keep them pinned. It's pretty useful, but I find that some of the other barrages are a bit better for the same sort of job, mostly like the Napalm Barrage. I think is just kind of an upgrade for this one. Yes, it's a lot more dangerous and it's less controlled, but it does cover more area and it can potentially kill more things overall. So that's why I put it down here into B tier, but still not a bad stratagem by any means. And since you get it unlocked level 1, that's pretty nice. It also has a pretty quick cooldown, so that's good. And then my other B tier that I was debating on putting into A tier, because honestly this one's pretty good too, is the Orbital Walking Barrage. Now the Walking Barrage you can unlock at level 10. This will cost you 7,500 requisition slips. It's a 6-button input, but it's the same 2 buttons over and over again, so you can call it out really quick. Has a fairly long cooldown on this one. All of these type of orbital barrages do, but this one's pretty interesting. You throw it out and then it will start walking the barrage towards the enemy, or whichever direction you threw it. It always goes in pretty much the same pattern of just firing 2 rounds about at the same area, slightly staggered from one another, and then it just slowly walks towards the target. This one is actually really good because it does give you a very long effective range for hitting potential objectives. It's not as consistent for knocking out big objectives like multiple buildings as compared to like the 380 or the 120 if you throw it in the middle of them, but it can be really good for picking off particular targets in an area. So if you get the walking barrage down, it can be really, really solid. But for me personally, I find that it's a little bit awkward at times compared to some of the other barrages where I just kind of throw them into the middle of where I generally want them to go. I have to think more about the walking barrage, and that can kind of mess me up sometimes if I'm trying to think about this. And the other ones, I'll just toss it wherever I kind of want it. So walking barrage is actually really good. This is probably more of a skill issue on my part than anything. So with more practice with this, I might put it actually up higher, just like with the same barrages. And that moves us on to the A tier barrages, which we have a lot of. So let's talk about the next barrages up into A tier, where our ones we have here are the 120, the 380, and the Napalm barrage. Now all of these I consider to be really good, and I really like running all of them at the same time. They are incredibly good for like blitz missions. They're really good for hold the area missions. So long as you throw them far enough away from the team, they're really good. That is one major issue with these, and that's why they're not going up into S tiers, because if you've ever had like one of these stratagems get knocked out of your hand into the middle of the group by some random bullet that hit you, it really sucks dropping the barrage directly on top of yourself and your team, because there's a very high chance you're going to kill yourself or probably everybody else, and it makes them inherently dangerous. It makes them really good for knocking out structures though, and really good for just knocking out areas without really having to fight all that much. You just kind of throw these into there and they'll probably take care of everything. So the 120 barrage can be unlocked at level 5. This one costs 4,000 requisition slips. It's a 6-button input, has a fairly long cooldown, although it has the shortest cooldown out of these 3 right now, so that is pretty nice. You may not be able to use this a whole ton throughout the missions, but they are very impactful when you do. The actual 120 rounds have anti-tank armor all the way up to level 3 if it directly hits something, but it's still got, at the very least, heavy armor pen on everything, even from the explosive, so it's really good for knocking out just about everything. 380 is unlocked at level 8, costing 7,500. This one has a much longer cooldown than the other ones. It has the longest, but this one fires out the most powerful rounds that can do the most amount of damage, and this one is fantastic for leveling buildings or dropping on top of some of the bigger enemies in the game or where a lot of enemies are spawning. And then the Napalm barrage is unlocked at level 18, costing you 10,000 requisition slips. This one has a pretty long cooldown too, almost pretty much the same as like the 380. This one won't do as much damage towards structures. It can still knock out structures if they hit directly, but it's not going to be as effective as the other two for knocking that out. But it's better for the crowd control since you're throwing down so much fire in an area, and then that fire is also lingering. So it's really good for the crowd control, and it can still knock out buildings. All 3 of these are fantastic overall. And then our very last orbital in A tier is the Orbital Precision Strike. Now this one is a pretty awesome stratagem. This one is unlocked at level 1, and it doesn't cost anything. It's free, you start out with it. And this one is fantastic. This one is only a 3-button input. You throw it down, and then it just fires a strike right wherever you throw it. This does really high damage, and this has an extremely short cooldown. It's only 90 seconds by default, and it can go all the way down to like 75 seconds. So you can call these out very quickly, and if you miss one of these, it's not that big of a deal. It has a very short call-in time too. This one has the highest level of anti-tank armor on it, and if you throw this on top of a building, or really on top of anything, it's probably going to kill it, short of like a factory strider. I think that's about the only thing that can really take a precision strike head on. It can also level buildings, and this one is just really, really good. If you get good with the precision strike, it can potentially be better than any of the other orbital strikes because it has such a short cooldown, it does so much damage, and if you can accurately throw this at enemies or throw it where enemies are going to go, you can take out just about everything with it. It's really, really nice. And even if you don't, it's not that big of a deal if you miss because it's going to come back up really quickly. It's similar to like the EATs, where who cares if you miss with the EATs? They come up every 70 seconds, 60 seconds, I think, at the lowest cooldown, and you get 2 of them. You're just always going to have something there to throw at whatever might be a problem. So the Precision Strike, really good. The only reason why it's not into S tier is because you do have to kind of be accurate with it. But if you are really accurate with it, then it could be an easy S tier because it's fantastic on pretty much every build. Now into the S tiers, we have 3 more orbitals. The very first one is the Railcannon Airstrike. Now this one is pretty much the same as the Precision Precision Strike, although it does auto-lock to something. So you're always going to get value out of this unless you literally throw it out into a field where there's nothing for this to shoot. So this one you have to unlock at level 20, will cost you 10,000 requisition slips. It comes out pretty quick. It's got an okay cooldown, nothing way too high, but it's not super short either. This one is, like I said, basically the same as the Orbital Precision Strike. It's just that this one will auto-lock to whatever enemies are in the area. Ideally, it will try to lock onto bigger enemies or big structures within the area, so it can knock out buildings, it can knock out ships, it can knock out big things like Titans or Chargers or really anything like that. It's really good for that, and it has a very high chance of just one-shotting them. Again, about the only thing that it can't one-shot, at least consistently, it does do a lot of damage to like the factory striders, and that's about it. Everything else it should kill, and you could take this and the Precision Strike too. Now, you do get about like 3 Precision Strikes off before you get to throw this one again. But even so, like, this one is fantastic. It's never a bad thing to be taking. It's just always very, very useful for knocking out bigger enemies. Worst case scenario is it goes for like one of the medium enemies and it kills that too. So it might not be way crazy in that regard, but it can be really nice if it's knocking out the bigger enemies. And then we have the Orbital Laser. This one is also pretty strong, at least it can be. The laser is a little bit more finicky than some of these other ones. So the Orbital Laser, you unlock at level 15. This one will cost you 10,000 requisition slips, and this one has a pretty long cooldown overall, as well as you do only get 3 of these in total per mission. So once you're out, then you can no longer use it. So if the mission goes longer than your 3 uses, the Orbital Laser does become basically a dead stratagem, which is rather unfortunate because it is very, very powerful. This one calls down a space laser that will target any enemies in the nearby area. Once again, it will try to prioritize big enemies. This one won't prioritize buildings though, although it still can knock out buildings, unless it's like a ship. They'll still target them, so it can kind of do building areas. But that's about the only one. The other ones, like bug tunnels, it's not going to target by itself, but it will target anything in the area. So long as you're getting value with the laser is really useful. It can potentially knock out an entire area full of enemies, as well as put fire on the ground to deal damage to anything else that might have survived that area. That's pretty nice. And you're pretty much always going to get value from the laser, assuming that you didn't throw it out in the middle of a field where there are no enemies. So just so long as you're using it pretty effectively, it is very, very useful. But there has been times where I've dropped the laser, killed like 2 enemies, got almost no value from it, and then just wasted one of my things, and something like the railgun shot would have just been better than that. And then our last one in S tier is the very humble Gas Strike. The Gas Strike is fantastic ever since it got reworked. It is really, really good. It has an extremely short cooldown on it, only taking 75 seconds to come up at the highest. At the lowest, it's 64 seconds. This one is unlocked at level 1, costs 4,000 requisition slips. It's a 4-button input. You throw it down, it does drop a gas strike on that area, which lingers for a while, deals damage to everything around it, as well as all enemies within the gas strike can become confused and start attacking one another, so you can get more value from that. It is really, really good. I would much rather have something like the gas strike over the EMS strike, because even if I don't hit with the gas strike directly, there's still a better chance that I at least cut off an area from enemies, because if they're running in, they're probably going to get confused if they don't die from the gas itself. The gas doesn't do tons of damage, which is actually kind of useful, because if you end up dropping this on yourself or teammates, it's very unlikely that the gas strike is going to kill you right away unless you're at low HP. So as long as you're paying attention, you can usually out-heal this and just run outside of it, so that's really great. As well as the actual strike itself, when it comes down, does count as a projectile. So you can even throw this at like Illuminate ships and blow them up. You can throw it into like bug tunnels too. It's a little bit less consistent there. And you can get it on top of bot factories, but sometimes that's also a little bit inconsistent. The gas strike is just fantastic though. Since it comes up so often, you might as well use it all the time. I love running this and like the Eagle strafing run, and then just basically spamming those out for everything, because they do pretty well against crowds, they do pretty well against big enemies, and they come up like super frequently, as well as you can get both of them at level 1. So if you're brand new to the game, just slap those onto basically any build and you're set to go for quite a while. The gas strike is just fantastic overall. And that's where I'd rank all of the Orbitals. The Orbitals are generally very solid in Helldivers. They're really nice because you don't have to wait for something like the Eagle to resupply at any point, so that's really great. So long as you're not being actively blocked or jammed, then you should be able to call these in whenever you'd like, and they can be really, really useful in a variety of situations. So thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.